What is going on, guys? My name is Cakes Mitchell, and welcome to the Baltimore Breakdown, where we talk anything and everything Baltimore Ravens football. And this is my first podcast and first video kind of thing, so cut me some slack. I'm still working out the kinks in exactly what I want to do and what I want to cover. But how I have it set up right now is that we're going to be talking about five different topics or five different subjects, and then usually I want to get to some like mailbag user submitted questions, but I can't do that this episode since I don't have any fans or anything at the moment. So if you guys have a question, please be sure to leave it in the comments, and I will be sure to get to your question on next week's episode. So today we have five different topics, and let's start with the season recap. Let's get right into it. It was pretty disappointing to finish 8-8 and to have that much talent on our roster. Felt like our guts and a heart ripped out of me. This team should have been great. It should have been at least a 10-16, a 10-16 rather, and definitely was set up to do so with the fall two teams like the Redskins and the Jets and even the Giants. Should have been. People can argue that we should have lost games like against the Eagles, but still, I feel like we should have won at least 10 games, and I feel like that would have been enough to win the division or at least get a wild card spot. The offense struggled most of the year. Throughout the first 12 games, pretty much, it was on and off. Mark Trestman got fired, couldn't really figure out our heart and our soul of what we want this team to be, and really started to find itself towards the end of the 4 games with targeting people like Steve Smith and the run game finally getting going and getting our offensive line back together with Ronnie Stanley. Jeremy Zuta finally started to play okay. Marcianda over at left guard. But then our defense in the final 4 games, after being in top 5 all year, fell apart with the absence of Jimmy Smith, granted, but fell apart and pretty much lost us the playoff spot. So that was pretty disappointing as well. And Flacco this year did get some records, like he finally surpassed 4,000 passing yards, but also had the most attempts, I think, even for any quarterback this year in the NFL. But his yards per attempt weren't that great. So it's kind of meaningless to me. I'm happy that he finally got over the hump of the 4,000 yards, so people stopped talking about that. But it's kind of meaningless to me. I'm glad that he got that achievement. Now I'm ready to look past that and just focus on having a good offense. And today, I think the game is in 30 minutes when the Dolphins play the Steelers in the playoffs. So I'm pulling hard for the Dolphins. Hopefully the Steelers lose pretty quickly. I have a feeling that they are not, and they are going to win this game, but I really hope that they don't. So overall season recap, really disappointed. I'm glad we didn't have a losing record. I wish we would have won a few more games to be able to get a playoff spot, but we're looking forward to next year, and that's all we can do. All right, so our next topic is, what do we do without Steve Smith? Steve Smith, over the past 3 years, has become Joe Flacco's favorite target, maybe because Dennis Pitta has not been playing that much except for this year, but has been Joe Flacco's security blanket, kind of like how Anquan Bolden was in our Super Bowl run. So Steve Smith is gone. He's retired. He said that he's not coming back, and that's huge shoes to fill. I don't know how exactly we're going to fill his shoes. And we're going to do so, or attempt to do so, in one of 3 ways. One, we can look to the draft. And I haven't really looked at any of the college prospects. I'm not really too familiar with college football, so I'm not sure if there's a guy that's going to be able to come in and especially step in immediately in Steve Smith's shoes and be able to basically carry an offense on like third. We need a possession type Steve Smith receiver, be able to move the chains consistently like that. Another thing is to try to develop a player that we already have on the team. Of these guys, I think the most likely candidate is going to be Kamar Aiken, because he did so in 2015. He was playing with a backup quarterback most of the time, but he almost passed that 1,000-yard season. But again, I'm not sure if Kamar Aiken is going to be that guy. I hope that he is. He's shown that he can be that guy at times, but this past season he has been non-existent, and I think that might be because of Steve Smith and bringing in people like Mike Wallace. It took away some of his playing time. So hopefully Kamar can become that guy if we decide to do that. Other players like a Mike Wallace and a Bashad Perryman and even like a Michael Campanero, I don't see those guys becoming that guy. Perriman and Mike Wallace are more of a speedy receiver. They're not really possession slot receivers, so I'm not really expecting them to become that. Other than those guys, I really see us, if we don't get someone like a Steve Smith, is to rely more heavily on our tight ends, like Crockett Gilmore when he finally comes back, and Nick Boyle, Max Williams, who was on IR all season, and Dennis Pitta. And the third thing that we can do to try to fill Steve Smith's shoes is to look into free agency. This is what the Ravens normally typically do, is we find a receiver over the age of 30 who maybe had some injury-prone problems and is more of an affordable option past their prime years, but definitely still reliable and able to produce those things for us like Anquan Bolden did, Derek Mason, and Steve Smith. So I think of these three options of going to the draft, trying to develop a player, or free agency, I think the most likely thing that the Ravens are going to do is to look into free agency, and if we can't, try to develop Kamar Aiken. I think of the players available, the most likely candidate I think is going to come to the Ravens is Brandon Marshall. I know that name was floating around back before he signed his last deal, and I still like him to come here. He's definitely a dude that I can see Joe Flacco working well with, coming in for 2 years or to try to fill that void while we try to develop some players. That's definitely something that I can see Ozzie Newsome wanting to do, is to bring in someone like a Brandon Marshall. All right, our third topic of the day is the future of running back. So right now we basically have two premier backs. Well, not premier. We have two backs that we rely on, and that is Terrence West and Kenneth Dixon. And throughout the year, we have relied heavily on Terrence West to carry that load. A lot of people forget that we had Justin Forsett on our team, who we cut. Then he went to the Lions, and he was cut there. And then he got picked up by the Broncos with Gary Kubiak pulling him over. So right now, we have Terrence West and Kenneth Dixon. Terrence West, I like a lot. I am from Maryland. Right now I live in Baltimore. I live in Towson. That's actually where he went to school, so he's a homeboy. He played right down the street from me. So I like Terrence West a lot for that aspect. Definitely a hard-nosed running back. Tries to get yards after contact and all that. But I wasn't on board with Kenneth Dixon at first. When I first heard and saw him, I think his first couple carries he had like negative yards. Granted, he was fighting an injury and things of that nature, but I like Kenneth Dixon going forward to be our number one back, and Terrence being the number two punch, because Kenneth Dixon just plays with just watching him play. This dude has so much talent, and to be a 4th round draft pick is like nuts. So really excited to see him play. And then John Harbaugh also said that he wanted to add a third type of back. And so we have West and Dixon, and I don't know what kind of back they want to add if it's in free agency. The only two people that I can see us trying to pick up, I don't think that we'll do either. Because we usually don't try to pick up free agents too often, is Danny Woodhead, who is like a possession back, because Terrence and Kenny Dixon have some trouble with their hands. And the other one is LeGarrette Blount. So, but I don't think that we'll get him. He's like a big bulking dude. Well, Kenny and Terrence are smaller guys. So, future running back, I think, is going to go to Kenneth Dixon. I think he has the most talent out of our backs. And Harbaugh said that maybe Buck Allen can be a guy, but I think he's starting to fall off a bit. So I'm looking towards Kenneth Dixon for our future. Okay, our fourth topic today is what position should we take in the first round of the draft? This year we have the 16th draft pick. The last time we had the 16th draft pick, I believe, was in 2013 when we picked C.J. Mosley. And which is not bad. And positions that we need are, we definitely need corner, we need pass rush, defensive end, and we need wide receivers. And I say, because I am tired of having this problem, is I definitely think that we need to bolster up our secondary by getting a solid corner. I know Jalen Ramsey was ripped out from under us last year when we tried to pick him up. The Jags picked him up. But this is just an ongoing problem that we need to address. I think the defensive end problem with our pass rush can survive another season because we still have Terrell Suggs. Not sure if Elvis Dumerville is coming back or not, but if he does come back, hopefully he stays healthy. But we have some young promise in, what are their names? Zadarius Smith, I think, has potential. So I think we can try to develop these players and try to survive another season without getting one of a high draft pick of a defensive end. And wide receiver, again, I think we're going to address in the free agency with, I think, Brandon Marshall is who I think is going to come to the Ravens. And if not, I can see we can find receivers in later rounds, but I think we need to try to find a corner. Because right now we're relying on Tavon Young and Gerard Powers, who seem to be potentially good secondary players, but I feel like are too short. People talk about him, how he's like is a really good guy and has a bright future, and I think he does, but I don't think it's on the outside because there's these huge dudes. Like, imagine us playing like Calvin Benjamin, who's just like 2 feet taller than the guy. There's no chance. I feel like he would be good playing more inside, but I think we need someone to play off of Jimmy Smith, especially if and when he does go down next season, because he is that type of guy that always gets injured. To have someone step in there to try to at least not have the damage be so terribly bad. So I say go cornerback. I'm not sure of the prospects. I got to look at like mock drafts and all that. It's a little early for that, but I think we should go corner if there's a good player. If not, I say go wide receiver and then go pass rush, because I think we can survive another season without pass rush, but that's just me. And our last topic of the day is what kind of offense will we have in 2017? The past couple years, in 2015 with Mark Trestman and last year with Marty Mornhinweg, we tried to go more of a pass-first team. And Harbaugh kept talking about how we need to go back to the run. But we never really followed through with that notion. And I think that going forward, if we want to be a successful team, is that we need to go back to the run-first offense. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be boring. It's not going to be an exciting offense, but it has worked the first 8 years of Joe Flacco's career, so much so that he got to the playoffs. Was it 8? I'm sorry, first 6 years of Joe Flacco's career where he got to the playoffs each time, won a playoff game. Granted, running or having the load on Ray Rice, but still, I feel like we need to go back to a run-first offense because we have someone talented like a Kenny Dixon that can now carry that load, and I believe he will develop into a great player for us. Is that Joe Flacco works well when people are stuffing the box to try to stop the run, which leaves fast, speedy receivers like a Torrey Smith that we used to have, but now like a Perriman or Mike Wallace to run past these guys in the secondary. And that's where Joe Flacco works. That's where he lived. And that's why it worked in 2014 when we did the play-action West-style coast thing. But it wasn't, we weren't relying so much on Joe Flacco. We were relying on the run game to open up the field for Flacco. Because Flacco's never going to be that quarterback that can absolutely pick apart a defense like a Tom Brady, like a Peyton Manning used to do, like a Rodgers, hot Rodgers when he's doing well, like a Drew Brees. Flacco's not that type of guy. Flacco's he's like loaded with talent, but he's not the smartest quarterback, in the sense that Flacco is good, but I think he works well when he's just allowed to show his arm off. That's why we brought him in here. That's why we have picked up speedy receivers like Perryman, Torrey Smith, brought in Mike Wallace, Chris Moore, is because we have these guys for Joe Flacco to throw down the field, and we're not able to do that when we're having a pass-first offense and people are just sitting back in cover 2 or cover 3, cover 4. It's like we need to, in my opinion, we have to run the ball. That has to be our main priority, is to maybe even in the first round, we say, screw it. We're just going to get a center or a right tackle. And our goal is to have one of the best lines in the league, with Ronnie Stanley also already playing amazing. Marshall Yanda, Pro Bowler. Jeremy Zuta, not the best. Maybe switch him out and maybe get another guard or tackle. But Alex Lewis, I forgot about him. He was injured. He looks okay. So I think that should be our main priority going forward, is to bolster that lineup, become a run-first team again, and really get the identity of the Ravens back, having an awesome defense and a good run game. Anyway, guys, that wraps up our first show here of the year. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm still trying to figure out this entire thing. If this should be a weekly podcast, if this should be a bi-weekly podcast, a monthly podcast until the season rolls around. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section below. If you guys enjoy this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you could subscribe to this YouTube channel. Not only do that, but also hit that little bell by it, because YouTube makes you subscribe basically twice now to be able to see anyone's videos. So if you guys enjoy this and want to be sure that you see it when I post a new podcast, you're going to want to click that bell. That would mean so much. Thank you so much. Anyway, guys, my name is Cakes Mitchell with the Baltimore Breakdown, and I will talk to you guys next time. I don't really have an outro yet, so right now I'm just going to bye.